Hi, welcome to Open Hand Farm. I am Penny, and if you are new here, we are so happy to have you. Maybe you're here for the Pantry Challenge. Well, I want to let you know I have other videos that might interest you, so take a peek and see if there's something else that you might like. And if you do, please subscribe and stick around. We love having you. This video will include the last few days of January and the first days of February. Now, one thing that it is including is today we are having friends over for dinner. I have the table set and I've been working on some roast and mashed potatoes and steamed broccoli and homemade sourdough bread, and we're anxious to kind of have them over. We don't really know them very well, but they go to church with us, and we just wanted to start inviting people over and get to know them better. So I'll just show you some of the things I've been doing this morning to get ready. The first order of business was to get my bread ready to put in the oven. So I did that. And then I also started the roast to cooking. I will put that recipe in the description box. I boiled my potatoes and got my pot out to cook my broccoli in so that everything was ready. The bread was in the oven and I was setting up everything else. I got my crock pot out to put the mashed potatoes in. I finished cooking the apple crisp. Then I had a few minutes while the bread was still cooking, so I had some yogurt with honey mixed in it and granola on top. And then it was time to get the bread out of the oven. This is much better than the flat bread I did last week. Well, we got lunch done. It was a success, but I forgot to take video of it. I am so sorry. I will put the recipe in the description box in case you are a roast lover, but someone in your life is not, because that's what the problem was here. Once I found that recipe, it made life much better. I don't think we'll probably be eating dinner because lunch was a little later than I thought and they just left. I think I'll just talk to you in the morning for breakfast. Good morning. Today is Monday. It's January the 29th. So today for breakfast, I had leftover waffles. I'm telling you, if I have waffles in the freezer, that's what I want every single time. Tomorrow will probably be the last day I have waffle leftovers, but that's okay. I also decided today that I needed to go ahead and can the cranberries that I still had in the fridge. And this made some beautiful red cranberry juice that will actually improve and get stronger in flavor as it sits on the shelf. When you do a lot of from scratch cooking, you end up with a dirty stovetop and a dirty oven. I was watching texts go through on a homeschool thread that I'm on. These moms that I homeschooled with years ago, we still stay in touch and I just adore all of them. Somebody was saying that they needed to clean their oven, so we all decided that this morning we were going to clean ovens. Now, I don't know if everybody did, but I know some of us did. So mine is still in the process of cleaning, and it will be so nice to not have that big black spill that's cooked on in the bottom of my oven when I go to cook this week. So if you're cooking from scratch a lot, go clean your oven. And after I started the oven to cleaning, I decided it was time to clean out the refrigerator of all the just little bits of leftovers that we're not going to be eaten because I have other things I want to make. You don't want to see me pull out a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You want to see me bake something else. We are going to have some leftovers tonight for dinner, but along with that, I am trying again to use these frozen mashed potatoes. So I have them sitting out today so that they can thaw. and then I will bake them and see how they turn out. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say I'm trying these potatoes again, go look at week 3, and I had a disaster. It turned out okay, but it was not what I expected. So check it out and then compare how we did by letting the potatoes thaw all day. Now it was time to work on these potatoes. You guys, they were still frozen in the middle, and I had left them out all day long. So I put them in a bowl, and then I opened my glazed carrots and got them ready to heat up. I got out my leftover roast and put it in the microwave. After pulling the potatoes out of the microwave, I just kind of beat them up, and eventually they were very creamy and they tasted great. So this was our Monday night family dinner that I cook, and everybody really enjoyed it. It was nice to have that much roast left over. And the potatoes were great. They weren't grainy or watery, they were just really good. The first thing I did before I did anything this morning was to start some bread dough that I could use to make bread for our Bible study tonight. I put it in the oven to set all day until it was time to bake it. Then I had more leftover waffles for breakfast, and for lunch I had one of my bagels the way I like it with some dried figs. Then I made some biscuits for a friend to take to a dinner that night, and she was thrilled with them. Okay, it's time to put the bread in the oven for our soup night at Bible study. And I'm just gonna kind of put some cuts in here. We'll see how it turns out. I never know what it's gonna look like, guys. Okay, for Bible study tonight, we're having a soup night, and I decided to just use some of the beef stew that I have on our pantry shelf. So I'm gonna open it up, but I'm going to kind of drain it out a little bit because I don't know that I need all the liquid, but if I do need more liquid, I wanna have it to put in there from the flavored liquid in the can and not just water. I didn't know how many of these I'd really need. I'm gonna go ahead and do 3 because if there's leftovers, we can just eat it tomorrow for lunch. We have plenty of meat and liquid in here, but I normally thicken this with like flour water slurry. But I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna use the leftover gravy from dinner last night, and I'm going to maybe put some of that pot roast in here too, just to beef it up a bit. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and pour this juice in that I had reserved because I think that it will be fine. This will just give it a richer flavor too, because this roast was flavored a little bit differently than the soup was. All right, now we'll just let this cook. And of course it is all cooked because it was canned, but we want all those new flavors to kind of meld together. Okay, our box is all packed up and ready for Bible study. When I made biscuits for my friend yesterday, I had a couple that I snuck away because she had like 17 in the pan and only needed 12. So I thought, I'll just take a couple. And so I'm gonna have those with some sliced cheese this morning. Then I decided to mix up some more overnight oats. So I got everything out and got those mixed up and covered them up so that they could get a little stiffer. And after they had set a little while, I went ahead and put them in these cup-size jars, and I ended up with 11 jars. That made me breakfast for 11 meals. And for lunch, I had leftovers from the beef stew the night before, along with a couple of pieces of bread. Oh my goodness, it is so beautiful here today. It's 60 degrees outside. I went out to look at my garden because I planted some cover crops in the fall, and I didn't know how they would survive the negative 11-degree weather for almost a week and 6 inches of snow on top. It not only survived, but it grew. Somehow it grew. And I see the mustards, I see the peas, I see the hairy vetch, all the things that are supposed to be in there are there. So that is like so exciting. I also had a Brussels sprout plant that I had given up on in the fall, and it too has survived this weather. I did cut off the really big leaves and fed those to the chickens, but I just left it planted to see what it's going to do from this point on. For now, let's get to dinner. I'm going to make a sweet potato chili casserole. It's using a lot of different things from our pantry. Let me show you. This actually calls for ground beef, but I use breakfast sausage, and the last time I made it, I used some smoked pulled pork. Well, I don't have any pulled pork, but I have some smoked turkey. So I want this to have a very smoky flavor to it. So I'm going to use some of this in with the sausage. We're going to start with 3 garlic bulbs. Now this recipe I will put in the description box, so you don't need to worry about writing this down as I do it. So I'm going to just chop them up. Make them pretty small. And now we'll chop up a yellow onion. I gotta chop it fast because it's gonna make me cry. Now we have some red peppers. We need 1 cup of red bell peppers diced. Well, I have these peppers that we grew in our garden. They're a very thin wall pepper, did not have a lot of seeds. And these were smoked on the grill. So, oh my goodness, I wish you could smell them right now. They smell delicious. So I am going to just chop these up, and that will add to my smoky flavor that I want in this. Now you can just add regular peppers. It's no big deal. I just wanted to have a more smoky profile. These peppers have a very sweet flavor. I'm really glad I planted them, and I'm definitely planting them again this year. Now we need 2 cups of sweet potatoes, and they need to be cut into 1-inch pieces. So I like to use my small sweet potatoes that we grew for things like this. They're just perfect for a 1-inch chop. These are, of course, as you can tell, purple sweet potatoes. We mostly had purple sweet potatoes this year. I do have 1 white sweet potato in this bunch that I grabbed. Well, I got them all chopped up, and I'm a little over 2 cups, but I am not going to worry about that. Now we're going to need 2 cups of shredded cheese. So for 1 cup, I'm going to use this Grazer's grass-fed that I get from Azure. And I'm just going to actually go ahead and shred this whole block. That way I have some shredded cheese on hand. So there's a cup of the shredded cheddar. And now I'm just going to reach in here and grab what I think is about another cup of this. And some of these pieces are pretty big, so I'm just going to kind of break them up a little bit. Now we're going to come over to our sausage. Now, again, the recipe calls for ground beef, but it also says to drain it and leave about a tablespoon of oil And I'm honestly looking at this, and there is not a tablespoon of oil in here because this is not a real fatty sausage. So I'm going to add some avocado oil, which is very mild, has very little taste to it, because I want to have enough oil to fry and cook down my peppers and onions and all of that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic and onions and peppers. Don't want to miss out on any. Oh my goodness, those peppers are amazing. Okay, I'm also supposed to add the sweet potatoes at this point, and I'm going to let everything cook for like 3 to 5 minutes and let it just kind of soften. So how do you feel about the purple sweet potatoes? Because they will remain purple through cooking. In fact, they will get a darker, deeper purple. While that is cooking, we're going to put together our seasonings that we need for this. One of the seasonings is oregano, and I have this oregano from my garden, and it calls for 1 teaspoon. I'm going to just powder it up here, and I know this is going to be more than 1 teaspoon, but I don't have a problem with that. I am known for adding extra spices. Sometimes I feel like the recipes just don't give you enough flavor. All right, that's more like 2 teaspoons. Now I'm also going to add some cumin seed, and it calls for 1 teaspoon, but I'm going to do 2 because that will add some more of that smoky flavor that I like. And then it also calls for chili powder, and it calls for 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of the chili powder. But then I'm also going to add some ground chipotle peppers. And I'm going to do about 1/2 tablespoon. So that's going to add, oh, that smells so good. That's going to add to the smokiness and add a little bit of heat. And we're supposed to put that in on top of all this yummy goodness over here. All right, let's take a look at this. I know that the sweet potatoes are not going to get real soft in this cooking, but I can tell that the onions and the garlic have softened. So now we're going to add our seasonings. You guys, this smells so good. I'm going to be honest, people that have eaten it don't think it looks real pretty. But the flavor is fabulous. I have a daughter that lives in an apartment behind our house, and she came up one night and we were eating it. She goes, "Nope, I think I'll pass on that." I'm like, "Just take a bite." And she ate 2 bowls. It was so good. So now we're going to add a few more things. We're going to add some crushed tomatoes. Well, I made some fire roasted tomatoes this summer. So that's what we're going to add, because again, that's just a little bit more of that roasted fiery taste. And you'll notice they're not real wet. And that's how I like them. I didn't want a lot of juice in there. And they're all chopped up, so there won't be like big chunks. Now the next thing we're going to add is black beans. Well, I have these black beans that I can, and they're chipotle black beans, which again adds more of the smoky flavor. So that's adding a little bit of liquid with that. All right, and now for the last item, a cup of beef broth. So I just happen to have part of a can of beef broth. Oh, you know what? We didn't add our turkey. I want that smoky yumminess again. And I just really like having the pieces of meat to bite into because the sausage is all little bitty pieces. Now we just need to put it in a 400-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes. And after it comes out, we'll sprinkle cheese on the top of it. Hey guys, it's almost time for bed, but I wanted to get some cookies started for tomorrow. I'm trying a new recipe for some sourdough peanut butter cookies. I don't eat processed sugar, and I try really hard not to eat just straight gluten. I do eat sourdough, and I use coconut sugar, honey, something like that in place of the sugars in cookies. So I will be switching this up just a little bit, but I wanted to have a long ferment. So I'm going to go ahead and start the dough tonight with just 4 of the ingredients. We're going to do the peanut butter, butter, sourdough starter, and flour. And that way the flour can be fermenting and breaking down. And then in the morning, I'll finish the process. So let's get these started before we go to bed. Now I just decided to do this, and it calls for a half a cup of room temperature butter. So I have close to half of a cup here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, put it in, and then I also have ghee that is room temperature. So I'm just going to use some of that to finish it off. Then I need a cup of peanut butter. I like to use the CB nuts that I get from Azure. And I love this peanut butter because it is very smooth and creamy. Now we're going to add our sourdough starter. We're going to put a half a cup of that in. And this is not a freshly fed starter. It's a little runny. The recipe says you can use pour off or a fed starter. Now we need a cup and a half of flour. We're going to add our paddle, lift our bowl, and turn it on low. Now what we're going to do, we're going to leave it in the mixer bowl. Let me show you what this looks like. Oh, it's really soft and pliable. I wasn't sure how it would feel. So there is the dough. It's very soft, very smooth feeling. It's nice. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave it in the bowl. I'm going to cover it, and then tomorrow morning we'll add things to it. Good night. I'll see you in the morning. This morning I am opening up my honey fermented cranberries. You can tell that they definitely did some fermenting because the dish is dirty and there's lines of honey on the sides. So I will clean this up at this point and put it on a shelf and put the lid on completely. But I'm going to use some of these berries in my overnight oats today. That will be so yummy. And I'll add a touch of granola to that too. And that's going to be some really good overnight oats. I'm also going to have half a toasted bagel. Get you a better look at this. Good morning. It is Thursday, and I've already had my breakfast. I also have my grandkids this morning, so I'm going to do some old school cinnamon toast on hamburger buns. We used to do this for our kids all the time, and they love them. So to make this, I'm just going to take a couple of hamburger buns that we had left over from last week, put some butter on it. I love to do it this way because it makes the sugar and cinnamon crunchy on top. It's so good. Now we're just going to add some sugar. I'm using a raw sugar. Okay, and then some cinnamon. All right, and now just to kind of spread that around, do that. All right, now we're going to put this in a broiler oven, and you got to watch it really closely because it could burn really fast. I'm also going to fix them a piece of bacon. I had some in the fridge, so I'm just going to wrap it in a paper towel and pop it in the microwave. So here is the toast. It's nice and crunchy, and bacon and banana. That's what the kids are eating. The first thing we're going to add are our wet ingredients. So we have an egg, have a teaspoon of vanilla, and one of the sugars that I am using is honey. So I'm going to go ahead and add it at this time too. And so I'm using a half a cup of honey and a half a cup of coconut sugar to replace the brown and white sugar. Okay, and before that gets totally mixed, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle in the other dry ingredients. So that is our baking powder, baking soda, and salt. And I mix them together in this little bowl. And we're supposed to just sprinkle them on. And then I will put our coconut sugar in. This is a very wet dough. And I'm assuming part of that is because I used honey. But you're supposed to refrigerate it for at least an hour and up to 24 hours before you use it. So I'm going to stick it in the fridge right now, and I will make them sometime later today. We have lunch. We're having peanut butter and jelly. Brother wanted blueberry jam, and Genesee wanted blueberry and raspberry, so she has half and half. She also picked some mustard greens out of the garden from the cover crop, and she put that on her plate. I wanted to show you these lids I have for our jams and jellies. They're so nice. You don't have to take a lid off, and you can label the top, so if you set it out for other people to see them, they can see what they are. Okay, let's make some cookies. Still a very soft dough. Normally, if I were making peanut butter cookies, I would roll them in sugar, but since I don't want the extra sugar, I'm not going to do that. All right, now we're going to use a fork and push them down. It might not hold its shape as well as if I had sugar on there, but that's okay. Let's try a little bit of flour. That's better. Just a little. All right, let me go back and make these look a little bit better. They look pretty good. Now let's put them in the oven. After the cookies had baked, I put them on a cooling rack. They were very soft, and I did bake the next batch a little bit more. And you guys, these were so good. They're so light and fluffy and delicious. For lunch, I had my usual bagel with the avocado mash, but instead of the cheese I usually use, I used feta today since I was out of the other, and that was just as good. And of course, I topped it with my sprouts. I went ahead and finished off the sprouts today. I can tell I've been using things out of the larder and the pantry because I have so many jars every time I unload the dishwasher. I love it. It also lets me know I can start canning again. Dinner tonight was more of the sweet potato casserole and some fresh biscuits. Welcome to day 6 of week 5. Today is Friday, and For breakfast, I had the same thing I had yesterday. I had the overnight oats with the cranberries from the fermented honey and some fermented granola on top. You guys, that is the best. Like, it might even be better than waffles. I don't know. If you need a crunch, you need the waffles. Although the granola is crunchy, it's a toss-up. You're just gonna have to try them both and see what you think. For lunch, I was here by myself because Mark was at school. So I had the rest of the beef stew that we had left over and a leftover biscuit. You didn't miss much. Now, I am really excited about dinner tonight because Kaylee wasn't feeling well on yesterday. You guys, these days just run together. Okay, yesterday was Thursday. So Monday night, I cooked dinner for the whole family. We have family dinner night. Thursday night, Kaylee cooks dinner for the whole family so we can have family dinner night. And she wasn't feeling well. So she cooked today, and it smells so delicious in this house. She made carnitas, and I'm gonna eat mine like nachos. I don't know how they're gonna eat theirs, but I'm pretty excited about it. So let me show you what this looks like. That meat was so good. And all the toppings are things that I had in the refrigerator. We didn't have to buy anything. Okay, I know you thought we were done for the night, but we're not. I'm gonna have pizza tomorrow, and so I have to start my sourdough pizza dough tonight. So let's get that going. We're starting with 1.5 pounds of flour. Then we have 3 teaspoons of salt. Now this recipe I will give you the recipe, but I am actually doing 1.5 recipe because that's what works for me to make 2 pizzas. 1 tablespoon of coconut sugar. Kind of mix those up a little bit. And we need 1.5 cups of starter. And what I'm using right now is pour off. So I'm going to go almost to 1 cup with that. And now finish up with this. Okay. Let me get this in. Get that off and then do it again. Now I'll just wrap it with saran in a bowl and put it in the oven for the night. Good morning. Today is Saturday, day 6 of week 5, and we are 3 days into February. So now I know that I can complete the January pantry challenge. Last night I put together some pizza dough, and this morning we're gonna get that out. For breakfast, I had overnight oats with cranberries and granola, nothing new and different. I do wanna do something different today though. Last year when we got our hog, we had a lot of breakfast sausage, and this year we asked for some breakfast sausage, some just plain ground pork. So what I want to do today is try to make some Italian sausage to put on our pizza. So I have my ingredients out and I've thawed out 2 pounds of the meat. So let's see what happens. So starting from the left, we have Italian seasoning, smoked paprika. It calls for regular, but I only have smoked. Garlic powder, onion powder, parsley, crushed red pepper, black pepper, and fennel seeds. I did not have any fennel seeds, so Mark had to run and get me some. So we did buy fennel seeds today for 99 cents. And the last ingredient is salt. I already put all of my ingredients together except for the fennel seeds, so let's get those added. It calls for half of a teaspoon and you can leave them whole. I'm just chopping them up just a little bit, and that is bringing the flavor out. Okay, there's our seasoning. Here's the ground pork, and now I'm just going to stir all of this in. Now I'm mixing this up early in the morning so that it can be sitting all day and let the flavors kind of soak into the meat. And then tonight I will cook it to go on our pizza. At this point, I will wrap the dough in saran and I will put it on a little plate and pop it in the refrigerator. I haven't decided if I'm going to use 1 or 2 of these tonight, but I'll put them in the fridge until it's time to bake. Okay, it's time to put our pizzas together. I'm browning the sausage over here. I put half of the sausage in a bag to put in the fridge to use for next week. I chopped up the peppers that I took out of the freezer. These are just plain, they're not smoked or roasted or anything. They're just plain peppers that I grew in the garden and froze. And I also cut up some red onion. I'm gonna shred some of this Rumiano mozzarella cheese that I got from Azure so that I'll have some really yummy mozzarella to go on our pizza. And I have some of these olives left that I got from Azure as well, and I'm the only one that likes them, so I'll just put them on part of the pizza. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but some people put honey on their pizza. I personally like a very, very light drizzle, not a lot. I have this garlic honey that I made last year, and it's been sitting on the shelf. I've used some of it, but I thought I would try that on the pizza tonight. That should be interesting. So I'm just gonna put everything together here. I forgot one of the most important things, the red sauce. So I'm gonna just use some of this pasta sauce that we get at Costco. Mark had used this jar for some noodles to take to work with him. And I'm just gonna use some of it. It'll make it real easy. And I might add some Italian seasoning to it. I like to oil my pizza pan. It just makes for a crispier bottom of the crust, which I really like. And then so that the crust will release from the pan well, I like to sprinkle a little bit of cornmeal. This is a coarser cornmeal than I usually use, so we'll see how it works. This is still a little cold, but it feels very pliable. And what I like to do is just start stretching it. Like to kind of get it to about the size I'm gonna need it. This is a really nice pizza dough. Okay, we need to go a little bit wider. Okay, now we're just going to, from here, I'm just gonna kind of stretch and push, kind of work the dough. If I see a spot that is getting too thin, I just kind of pinch it together, try to fill it in. And I like to kind of stretch it out a little bit and then roll in the edge so that you have a little bit of a edge on the pizza to kind of hold things in there. This is a very nice dough. We're not a real heavy sauce family. And we are of the school that you put the cheese on first and let everything else be able to cook and kind of broil on top of the cheese. So that's what we're gonna do. And I am also a very firm believer that the cheese needs to come all the way out to the edge of the pizza. I basically don't wanna see much red. if any at all. Now I'm gonna add the sausage. I tasted this and it's good. It definitely tastes like Italian sausage, but I am more of a sweet Italian sausage fan. So I think I will keep looking for another recipe. Okay, now we're gonna add pepperoni. So I'm adding all the things that will go on the whole pizza first. Like the black olives, I wouldn't add now because I want to be able to see them. Okay, I know that all of us like red onion, so it will go on first. Kind of trying to separate the little rings as I put it on there. I don't know if my daughter likes red pepper, but I know Mark does. So I will leave part of this without. I will put olives on half of this. Now we'll put it in a 400-degree oven for 25 minutes. Okay, it's done. I'm gonna get a piece with black olives and I'm gonna drizzle it with some of this garlic honey. And there it is. Nice, thick, crunchy crust on the outside, but soft on the inside. Mark and I decided we would go up to our attic and eat up there, kind of have a little date pizza movie night, and it was so nice.